Sixers win it! Wow!
Oh, man, Embiid just posterized Russell Westbrook. You love the Philadelphia Eagles! Let me get a hell yeah!
What is up, everybody? What's going on? It's your boy Dibes, Mr. Crockpot on Twitter. Welcome to Party on Broad. Today is our Eagles' first round big board where we're going to count down our top 10 prospects for the Philadelphia Eagles at number 6. Before we get started, make sure you like, comment, subscribe. We'll be doing this 10 to 1. Please go follow us on Twitch. We're on Twitter at The Painted Lines. We're also on Spotify. We're on Apple. You name it. Audio, go check it out. So right now we've got my man Shane joining us. He is at _TPL. What's going on, Shane?
Not much. You know, I'm in a difficult place in my life right now because I finished The Man in the High Castle last night. So I don't know if you remember the old like Netflix show hole commercial, but I feel that deep in my soul. So I just need some time, some closure before I can move on to the next thing. So I thought it'd be a great night to talk Eagles.
Love it, love it, love it. Such a good show. Also joining us is my man Chris. You know him on Twitter at Mally_Chris_24. He's a writer for 4th and John. Chris, how you doing, bro?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me on. Obviously, 65 days actually from the draft, so it's winding down, and the Eagles just acquired another third-round pick from the Wentz trade. So I know we've been going through mocks, but Key is hitting on the 6th overall pick, so it'll be nice to hear your guys' thoughts on this pick.
Love it, love it, love it. Also joining us is my man Mark. He is host of the Tough Cover Pod. Follow him on Twitter at MarkHenryJr. _. What's going on, Mark?
Ready to talk some Eagles, ready to nerd out over some potential first-round picks, ready to turn the franchise around with this 6th overall pick.
Love it, love it, love it. Let's get rolling, guys. This is our Eagles number 6 big board. We're going to go 10 to 1 again. And also, just a reminder, this show will lead up to Podadelphia and our Sixers versus Raptors postgame show. Stick with us. The show will keep going when we end this show here. So let's get going, guys. Let's bring up our number 10 prospects. Lead us off, Shane. Who is your number 10 prospect for the Philadelphia Eagles?
So my number 10 guy is a guy that you just put a scouting report out a couple days ago for, and it's tight end / maybe wide receiver Kyle Pitts. I know that there's been a lot of people that have been mocking him to the Eagles at 6. I'm not a huge fan of that, but I'm totally comfortable dropping back and taking him. He's a matchup nightmare, if we want to use that term. And we know that Nick Sirianni likes to use 2 tight ends. We've got Dallas Goedert. Kyle Pitts is better than Dallas Goedert, and I'm pretty high on Dallas Goedert. I looked up a stat for each of my guys that I could drop. And so my stat with Kyle Pitts was that in 49 catchable passes in 2020, he had 0 drops. And he only played 40 snaps at receiver, and on those 40 snaps, he had 7 receptions over 15 yards. So it's a small sample size, but he's a guy the Eagles could move around, and I think he'd be a weapon for the offense and a guy that Jalen Hurts would love to have out at the boundary.
What about you, Mark? Who's your number 10?
My number 10 is cornerback Patrick Surtain out of Alabama. He's the son of former 3-time Pro Bowl corner Patrick Surtain Sr. He's got football in his genes, and he proved it as a unanimous All-American, winning the SEC Defensive Player of the Year. In 9 games last year, Surtain allowed 25 yards receiving or fewer, and in his career, he had 4 picks and 4 forced fumbles. He can do it all in terms of man and zone, has played on the left and right side, and is great in press coverage, rarely gets beat. I had him in another corner that I don't want to mention until someone else gets to, neck and neck, but the lack of injury history for Patrick Surtain put him above the next guy on my list at number 11.
Hey, Chris, go ahead.
Yeah, so first I want to put it out there that most of the picks we've been talking about in previous shows, these aren't guys that we'd necessarily take at 6. These are just kind of like 10 guys that would be at 6 or like on a slight trade back. For me, my first one I put was Zach Wilson. Obviously, you'd have to take him at 6, but I put him towards the back end because I'm a believer that I'm not completely sold on Jalen Hurts. Obviously, it's a small sample size. You saw some things you liked. You saw some things you didn't like. The thing with him is I feel like it's not fair, and we to assess him off the 4 games, knowing how banged up the line was, how the receiving core was, and the running game was. I think it's good to give him a fresh start and to give him a strong core around him, and not do the same that we did with Carson Wentz. And the big thing is should have a healthy line this year. And the big thing is Zach Wilson. I'm putting him towards the back end just because it's a value pick. It's few and rare times that the Philadelphia Eagles are picking at 6 and have a chance at a talent such as Fields or Wilson. So that's why I back end I'm putting him there. I think Wilson, the reason why I'm putting Fields above him is because obviously the competition in big games, Wilson struggled a little bit. The arm talent and playmaking abilities there, but that's why he's towards the back end of the list.
Love it, love it, love it. I actually have no quarterbacks on my top 10. You're going to see my list is built with trade back scenarios that we're going to really dive into because I think that I prefer that. If the top 2 1A, 1B receivers are not on the board, other than a couple other prospects as well, I am team trade back, and we're going to really get into that. We have some comments here before I get into mine. Vasilio says, Simmons is an all-star again. Let's go. Vasilio's, if there's no wide receiver, let's take a cornerback. We are going to get into that. Marky Mark says at 6, Jamar Chase or trade down for Surtain or Caleb Farley. Top 6 wide receivers picked in the past are freak shows, not undersized wide receivers like DeVonta Smith. We're also going to get into that, I am very sure. Jonathan Heim says, got to go offensive line at 6, have to. And McGinty says, Mark has been doing these since summer of 2004.
That's definitely true. That's definitely true.
For a lot of us, this is Christmas, guys. This is absolutely Christmas. There's nothing better. And then we have a Kyle Pitts comment there. My number 10 is Micah Parsons. If Jim Schwartz was the defensive coordinator here, I think we could all pretty much lock that they are not taking Micah Parsons here in the top 10. But it'll be interesting to see what the hiring of Jonathan Gannon means for defensive coordinator, the defense of the Eagles moving forward. You look at last year, Jonathan Gannon was around a Colts defense that also featured all-pro linebacker Darius Leonard. Having a 3-down linebacker that can thrive on the run against in coverage seems to be a really, truly growing trend right now in the league. The Eagles certainly do need replacements. Nate Gary, I'm not going to touch on that. Probably the worst coverage linebacker I've ever seen in my life. But Parsons could become that coverage linebacker the Eagles so desperately need. He's been strong in zone coverage for his entire career at Penn State. And you saw him blitz a lot on passing downs. The problem is Howie Roseman's still in office, which, God, for whatever reason, he's still here in Philadelphia. So I highly doubt Howie Roseman would ever put this amount of resources, this level of asset into the linebacker spot. Roseman has only spent 2 picks on day 2 at linebacker, Davion Taylor last season and Michael Kendricks back in 2012. Typically, Roseman loves those like seniors, those multiple seasonal guys, and Parsons is only a 1-year starter. So it'll be interesting to see how much control Howie Roseman has on this year's draft, given how poorly this team is top to bottom, devoid of young talent. So Micah Parsons is great, but I would love to see that guy in a trade back scenario, maybe once or twice in that like mid-teens range, and just continue to grab assets for that day 2 range, which is full of safeties and linebackers that we really went into on a previous pod that are perfect fits for the Philadelphia Eagles. Shane, lead us off with your number 9, man.
My number 9 is cornerback Patrick Surtain from Alabama. The Eagles, it's no surprise that the Eagles need cornerback help. Darius Slay, I guess you could call it a bounce back year last year. He really struggled against some of the top receivers, but it was a marked improvement on anything the Eagles have had in the last several years. But they got to have somebody on the other side. And assuming Jonathan Gannon puts in that cover 2 sort of scheme over the single high that Jim Schwartz preferred, it makes corner less valuable, but still there's nobody on the roster the Eagles have. Surtain, he's the safer pick. I would say, of the top 2 cornerbacks. He comes in lower than the other guy who's going to be a little bit later in my list. He's a safer pick. He's played the position longer, played 41 games at Alabama, and in those 41 games, he only allowed 70 yards one time. So, I mean, he's done it. He's done it against good competition. He's got a lower ceiling than the other cornerback we'll talk about later, but he also has a lot higher floor. And so Patrick Surtain is another guy I'd love to see in a trade back scenario.
Love it. What about you, Mark?
I've got linebacker Micah Parsons from Penn State. Pretty much echoing a lot of the things that you said when you had him at number 10. He's got excellent sideline-to-sideline speed with the size to do pretty much everything, to run in coverage, to play the run, to blitz, even rush off the edge, which is what he did in high school when he was a 5-star prospect coming out of high school. He doesn't arm tackle and he doesn't miss on tackles. He's very reliable. But like you said, the knocks against him are being a bit raw and having only one season of elite production, being a 1-year starter. So that would be the knocks against him. I think if he would have played, he probably would have played himself up this list.
What about you, Chris?
So on back-to-back quarterbacks here, I'm team no quarterback, but I'm just looking at realistically from like a front office perspective. I would have to put the 2 of those on the board that they're there. It makes sense because everyone's seeing all the news that we're pumping up, like the possibility of taking a quarterback at 6, and it makes sense for a lot of reasons. You just add value to the 6th pick because there's about 3-4 teams that are behind us that are going to want to move up. So if the Eagles can maneuver and move back a pick or 2 or 3, because maybe Jamar Chase is gone and they want to take like Surtain, Farley, or one of their guys later, then you add like a 2nd or 3rd round pick. But Justin Fields, I mean, there's a huge knock on Ohio State quarterbacks because not many of them have panned out, but a lot of them haven't had the upside or even the floor as Justin Fields. I think he'd be really solid if they ended up going quarterback, but I don't even think he's going to be there at 6, but talent-wise, he's there. And just a quick comment with Micah Parsons. Obviously, like before he ended up opting out, a lot of mock drafts had him as like a top 5 pick in the draft this year. And then he opted out. And then there's the character issues that came into play the last like month and a half that have just like gained a lot of steam. And now you see him dropping out of the top 10. I think Micah Parsons is an incredible player. The character issues is something that hopefully the Eagles are getting as much info as possible on. My main reason for not having a linebacker in the top 10 is because I think the 2nd and 3rd rounds are like loaded with talent there, especially if you can get Jabril Cox in the 2nd round, maybe early in the 3rd. That's the only reason why I don't have them there, mainly because of character issues, and secondly because value-wise, like the linebackers are great in this class, and the value in the 2nd round is huge.
Is there any possibility that Micah Parsons falls out of the 1st round?
I wouldn't it honestly wouldn't be crazy if he did. I think he might fall out of the top 15, but I think that a team that maybe has like 2 first-round picks might end up taking him, like maybe like a Miami team. They see him with like with their 2nd first pick. I don't know. It really comes down to like it's going to be a weird draft because it's a COVID year, and then you add in that there's no combine. Some of these guys opted out, so they had to go off of tape that they saw last year for some guys, and then they had to take some tape from this year with a grain of salt. And then with no combine, like Senior Bowl was like the biggest time to get their hands on with the players. That's why DeVonta Smith absolutely made the right move going down to the Senior Bowl, just to hang out with Brian Flores and the Miami staff, because it was the best interview that he was going to get, and they just got to get a good look at the player mentally and physically that they weren't going to get at the combine this year. So I think Parsons could fall. It really comes down to how he interviews, because if he interviews bad and they don't have and they had the character issue problems like on their mind, then he might drop all the way out of the 1st round.
Wow. All right. Andrea says Eagles are drafting a linebacker and they are winning this draft. We'll see. It's been a long time. Marky Mark says Parsons is not getting past the Patriots. My number 9 is Gregory Rousseau. This guy is a physical beast, 6'7" frame, 270 pounds, 7-foot wingspan. The knocks are he only played 1 season at Miami. He's a bit of a project. He lacks polish. However, the facts are the Eagles are at ground zero of a full rebuild. They can afford to wait. So Rousseau has immense speed. He's for a man that size, 6'7". He's got a thick base, helps him in the running game. He rarely gets fooled by misdirection, which was one of the Eagles' main Achilles heel on defense. last season. He's got versatility. You can put him all over that defensive line, which we know the Eagles absolutely love. The Eagles need to add depth to their defensive line, especially on the edge where they lack pass rushers. I'm not sold how long some of the veterans on this defensive line are going to stick with the Eagles moving forward. And you look at, even though like the Eagles defensive line has been one of the few bright spots over the last few years, you look at Derek Barnett, he's still a question mark, a rotation player at best. You look at Josh Sweat, he showed some flashes there last year, but he's a rotation player at best. Gregory Rousseau's talent, this guy's skill set would be a very smart move in a trade back for the Philadelphia Eagles. I would love to see, even though he's not the wide receiver we want, even though there are probably better options there, Gregory Rousseau would absolutely make sense. At the end of the day, you win football games in the trenches. So trading back for this guy in that like 8 to 12 range, let's go. Gregory Rousseau would absolutely love to see this guy give the Eagles a jolt on the defensive line. Let's throw it in reverse. Chris, lead us off. Who is your number 8?
So my number 8 was Jalen Waddle from Alabama, 5'10", 185. I mean, he was on pace to outpace DeVonta Smith before the injury. I mean, the thing with this guy's tape is I think Smith or Waddle would have went, in my opinion, would have went ahead of Ruggs and Judy last year in the draft if they were in the same class. I think that Waddle is probably the closest thing to a Tyreek Hill that we've seen in a while. I know that like people, yeah, I mean like Jalen Waddle is special, and the big thing with him is like Tyreek Hill, he jumps up and gives for the ball. He's really aggressive. He's not an insane route runner underneath, but he doesn't need to be. He's kind of a guy that's a home run threat, but at the same time, he has like the Odell Beckham ability where if he's outside the numbers and he catches the ball and he's one-on-one, you're not going to stop him. It showed a lot of heart that he tried to play in the national championship game, and he ended up getting like a little re-injured, but he should be ready to go by the time camps are going. I mean, Jalen Waddle's electric. They said he might run like I think it was like a 4-2, like a 4-2-2, like something crazy. I don't know how it's going to go with the ankle injury, but they said him and Ruggs raced last offseason and Waddle beat him by a little bit. So, I mean, we'll see how it goes, but Jalen Waddle would be special. And him and Jalen Hurts were actually working out together this week too.
What about you, Mark? What's your number 8?
My number 8 player is linebacker Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah from Notre Dame. I figured I'd be probably the only guy to have him on my top 10. It's probably a bit of a homer pick since I'm a Notre Dame fan. And I've having watched more Notre Dame than any other team, with them being my favorite team, this guy just makes plays happen. He had the forced fumble and the recovery that basically won them the Clemson game. He manned the rover position. Like he was basically like a hybrid linebacker safety based on where they needed him the most, and wherever the ball was, he somehow always found his way there. He's great in coverage. He's great against the run, and even has some pass rushing and blitzing skills. I think he's very Jamal Adams-esque. He was the winner of the 2020 Butkus Award. He awarded to the nation's top linebacker, and I just think he's just a gamer, and he's just a guy you want to take. He might not be a great option for us at 6, but again, if it's a move back scenario where you pick up picks for the future, I wouldn't mind taking him from 8 to 15, wherever that is.
Love it. What about you, Shane?
I went with Jalen Waddle as my number 8 as well. When I was putting this together, because I haven't got through everybody yet, and I pretty well viewed Chase and Smith as 1A and 1B, and Waddle as number 2. And man, I don't know if I can. I don't know. I'm not quite there yet, but he might be up at my wide receiver 1 by the time we get to the draft. I need to put on some more tape of him. But, I mean, if you're going to describe him in one word, it's electric. Over the last 2 years at Alabama, he's caught 10 touchdowns, and his average reception on the touchdown is over 43 yards. So, I mean, he makes big plays. He has a 98-yard kickoff return for a touchdown, a 77-yard punt return for a touchdown. The Eagles need special teams help. They need a big play threat. Over the last 2 years, 61% of his yards have come after the catch. So This is a guy you can get the ball to in space. It's a guy that can take the top off the defense. He can chip in on special teams. And his first name's Jalen, and apparently Howie's got a type. So I think, when we're looking at guys at 6, I've been big on, if Chase and Smith aren't there, you got to trade back. If they stood at 6 and took Waddle, I wouldn't be upset. And I may have him up to my wide receiver 1 by the time we actually get to the draft.
Love it. Rob Lange says, miss you guys. Wish I was on here with you guys. We miss you too, Rob. Let's go to Andrea says, Parsons is not falling to the second. Andrea says, I think they will go defensive lineman in the second round. We talked about that in our pod. So about like a week or two ago, we did a day 2 pod on the best fits for the Eagles. D lineman was there. And then Mark taking a Notre Dame player. Yawn. Okay, that's awesome. Offensive line. My number 8 is Rashawn Slater. I think if there was anything the Super Bowl showed you, at the end of the day, championship football is won at the line of scrimmage. I have O-line rated higher than defensive end as a need due to all the Eagles injuries and sacks given up that we have seen these last 2 years. But defensive end depth is a huge need. But a great pass rush means nothing if you can't keep your quarterback comfortable in the pocket. Just ask Patrick Mahomes, who looked like Carson Wentz running for his life, playing hero ball in that Super Bowl game. So Rashawn Slater has the ceiling of franchise left tackle. And the idea that maybe you could trade back for this guy in that 8 to 12 range would be an A-okay with me. Rashawn Slater opted out of 2020 last year to prepare for this draft. He was outstanding last year. He had a grade of 90.1 per Pro Football Focus. His numbers are terrific, man. This is a guy who gave up 5 pressures in 787 snaps. He allowed a pressure in 0.64% of his snaps in 2019, which is absolutely mind-blowing, which we'll get to. Penei Sewell gave up 0.76% of his snaps. So we're going to talk about that guy very, very soon. So although Slater was really good in pass protection, his actual run production was better than his pass protection. So this guy is just the total package. I love this guy, Rashawn Slater. If you could trade down and get him in that 8 to 12 range for the Eagles, at the end of the day, I know they have a lot of depth on that O-line. I know Andre Dillard and Mariota, Lane Johnson, but at the end of the day, you can never have enough young depth on that offensive line. Rashawn Slater is my number 8. Go ahead, Chris. What's your number 7?
So I'm going with cornerback from Virginia Tech. It's Caleb Farley, 6'2", 207. I mean, this guy, if you could make like a cornerback in like Madden, he's pretty much what it would be. He's a converted wide receiver to corner due to a knee injury. That's like the one knock on him is people kind of look up at any injury history they had, but he got better after the injury. And the reason why you like him is he pretty much just runs a route with the wide receivers. Like there's very few times that he's not in position, and anytime he's out of position, his athleticism makes up for it. First of all, he's 6'2", and so he's already up there with some of the bigger wide receivers. And then you add in just the pure athleticism and skills because he's seen things on both sides of the ball, which I think is important. And the thing with Caleb Farley is he's just a physical specimen. I mean, with the big 3 cornerbacks, like we can go back and forth talking about them with Surtain, Horn, and Farley. It's pretty much Patrick Surtain. The reason why people are kind of like weird with like how to rank him is because it's almost too easy to grade him. Like he has a high floor, but people don't know where his ceiling is. Caleb Farley, his floor is kind of unknown, but his ceiling is really high due to his athleticism and size. And then Horn, it's like people he's a monster, but he's a little crazy. He has a little bit of Jalen Ramsey in him where you feel like the guy's going to fight everyone on the field, but he's really good. But we'll get to other corners later. But yeah, Caleb Farley is my number 7 pick.
You might have just convinced me on J.C. Horn right there. What about you, Mark?
Looks like Mark's frozen.
Is he frozen?
No, I didn't. No, I can hear you. I can hear you. I'm right here.
Right.
My number 7 is wide receiver Jalen Waddle out of Alabama. I'm echoing a lot of what you guys said that had him at number 8. But he was part of the Ruggs, Judy, Smith, Waddle quartet, like you guys talked about. He was more highly regarded than Smith going into the year before he missed a lot of time with the ankle injury. In 2019, he was the only wide receiver in the country to average at least 12 yards per catch, or 12 yards after the catch per reception. So he's just a yak monster. When you watch him running on a screen or a slant, he looks like a running back. He's absolutely a burner. And can be used in many different ways, including obviously taking the top off the defense, which would help the Eagles a ton. But size, drops, and route running would be the biggest concerns, I guess, putting him right outside my top 6. But honestly, I'd be perfectly happy if we walked out of this draft taking Jalen Waddle at number 6.
What about you, Shane?
I guess I'm just shadowing Chris here, but Caleb Farley is my number 7 too, although I have those flipped. I have him higher than Surtain, and I'm assuming Surtain's going to pop up in a minute for Chris. I love Farley's story. He played offense in high school. He played quarterback in high school. Didn't get looks at quarterback. He committed to Virginia Tech to be a receiver. Tears his ACL his freshman year, real early on, and so when he comes back, they say, "Hey, we want you to play defense," and he jumps in and he plays corner for 2 years. And in 2019, his second year, he opted out 2020. So his last year that we have tape of him, he allowed a completion rate of less than 50% on passes targeting him. He allowed one or fewer catch in 70% of his games in 2019. Over his career at Virginia Tech, if you throw the ball at him, he was either breaking up the pass or intercepting it 22% of the time. Like, that's phenomenal production. He runs routes for the receiver. He's great in man coverage. I mean, when I wrote the scouting report on him, I listed his zone coverage as a weakness, and he was graded a 91.0 in his zone coverage in 2019. Like, that's how good I think he is. Now, again, you've got some negatives there. He's had injury history. He doesn't have a long history at the position, but I mean, he's the type of guy. I mean, like Chris said, if you could build a guy in Madden, you don't see corners that are his size, that are as athletic as he is. They just don't come around. So he can outrun guys. He can outbody you at the catch point. He's the whole package. And the only thing that's a little bit concerning for me is just the injury history he's coming with.
All right. Let's go on to my number 7, and that is Jalen Waddle. Most experts see this guy as, that second tier, but like you said, Mark, I'm not so sure, man. I see this guy as definite. I would be okay with this pick at number 6. It's not one of my trade back scenarios. I'm good with Jalen Waddle at number 6. So he's not that 1A, 1B like Smith and Chase that we'll be talking about very, very soon. But what he does bring to the table is pure speed. In the NFL, speed kills. And although you kind of have Jalen Reagor, who's kind of like that same kind of similar build wide receiver type, but it's still a major need for the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a guy who have recorded more than 110 receiving yards in 4 out of the 5 games he played in. And then you see Jalen Waddle also agreeing, Chris, compared to Tyreek Hill. I had Tyreek Hill circled on my notes here from watching the tape. He was on a Heisman pace of himself before he got injured against Tennessee, 139 yards per game. So due to there's so many talented fits for the Eagles in that day 2 area. If in a dream world scenario where you could, again, go back to 8 to 12 and take Jalen Waddle and get another day 2 pick, that would be a major home run, although I would be ecstatic to take him at number 6. Let's start off with Shane. You're up, man. Go ahead, Shane.
I like the Jalen Holy Trinity.
I love
it. My number 6, you said me, right?
Yeah, you're up, dude.
My number 6 is offensive tackle Penei Sewell, offensive tackle from Oregon. Now, I know, the Eagles have Lane Johnson. Everybody's really high on Jordan Mailata, and I think Mailata's got a lot of talent, but neither Mailata or Dillard are sure things. And I view Sewell as a generational prospect at offensive tackle. We're looking at, the Eagles are about to enter a rebuild. They don't want to call it that, but that's what it is. And so when you look at rebuilding, you got to figure out what's the most important thing on a football team. You need a quarterback, you need offensive tackles, and you need guys to rush the passer. And I think Sewell could be a franchise left tackle for 12 to 15 years. And if you get a chance to take that guy, you take him and you figure it out later. He was a monster at Oregon. He only allowed 7 pressures and 491 pass blocking snaps, and he never allowed 2 pressures in the same game. I mean, he's young. What the crazy thing is that he's nowhere near his ceiling. Like, he has a sky high ceiling, as good as he is. I really think the sky is the limit for him. And I know a lot of people would grumble about it if the Eagles took him on draft day, but years down the road, they'd look back on that moment and be like, man, I can't believe I wasn't stoked to take him.
All right, you're up, Mark.
This is I was happy to see that someone else even had him on the top 10. I thought that I'd have him alone on the top 10 too. But I have DN Gregory Rousseau out of Miami. This is the exact type of player I fall in love with. Raw 6'7" pass rusher with crazy wingspans who get to the quarterback, deflect passes, force fumbles, and cause havoc. Guys like this that I've loved in the past are JPP, Montez Sweat, and Josh Allen, the DN, not the quarterback. And I think Rousseau is an exact JPP clone. He still has all 10 fingers, so that's a positive. And I think the ability to deflect passes at the line and even the threat to make the QB think twice and have to make their move to make their throw is invaluable, as we're still seeing with JPP still killing it in Tampa Bay this year. He was a former wide receiver and safety in high school who didn't play the edge spot until his senior year, so he's definitely raw. And his one elite season at Miami, he had 53 tackles with 20 tackles for loss and 15.5 sacks. He lines up all over the D-line. But basically, like you said at 9, I'm foregoing all need, and it doesn't necessarily make sense to pick him at 6. His value is farther back, but I just think value-wise, if you trade back and got this guy a couple picks later in the teens or the early teens, I think it would be a hell of a value. And I'm personally fine taking him at 6 because I think the upside is just tremendous. This is my favorite defensive player in the draft, and that might be a bit controversial because he is a project, but you just can't teach the freakish athleticism and size, and this guy has both in spades.
What about you, Chris?
So going back-to-back with corners, Patrick Surtain is my number 6 pick right here. I mean, he's a 5-star recruit out of high school, and funny enough, second-round talent, Tyson Campbell, was opposite of him when they were in high school. From Georgia. It's kind of interesting because like people do all these like statistics on like how like 5-star recruits end up. I mean, Surtain got thrown into the fire at Alabama right away. He started as a freshman. He's a willing tackler, and the crazy thing is he had a reputation like pretty fast. I mean, people kind of avoided throwing to him even in college, and it's not that. And you're going against Alabama, you're going to have talent all across the field, but like people didn't like throwing towards him, and when they did, more often than not, he was there because he didn't have like all the interception numbers, but he was always there. He was always in position to make the play. I mean, like we're talking about, there's nothing that he does that really like pops off and like Farley or Horn, but it's because people kind of avoided him, and he's kind of had that notoriety his entire career. He has probably one of the highest floors out of any of the players, not just cornerbacks. And Surtain would be a no-brainer. He comes, his dad and his family's going to have his back, and he knows the way of the NFL, and he'd be a solid pick. And the reason why we're talking about all these cornerbacks is obviously, like the sexy pick is like the wide receiver. Believe me, I have Chase as number 1 on my board. Spoiler alert. But if you look at the Pro Bowlers this year, all the cornerbacks were all like first, second round picks, and all like the wide receivers were later. And it really comes down to situation. I do believe that our coaching staff here is going to be better equipped to handle some of the young wide receivers and get them into gear with Jalen and the rookies, especially with COVID protocol hopefully winding down by the time the OTAs are going on. But Surtain would be awesome, especially to learn behind Slay. It would be a no-brainer pick.
I'm gonna talk about that guy very, very soon. But first up, I'm gonna follow that cornerback train and go with my number 6, which is Caleb Farley. Hands down, the concept of trading back in that 8 to 12 range and getting Caleb Farley is one of my favorite draft scenarios for the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a guy who can play man coverage with the best of them in this draft class. No matter how you look at it, though, the Eagles are never going to really do damage in the NFC East until they stop rolling out that crap-tastic defensive backs they have on this roster in 2020. Aside from Darius Slay, it was brutal. It was Swiss cheese at defensive back last year. Caleb Farley, like you guys mentioned, great size, 6'2", 210 pounds. He's a ball hawk, super fast feet, speed, kills, and Caleb Farley might have the best feet out of all the cornerbacks. I think you said 4.2. I heard a 4.3. Chris, that is absolutely insane for a cornerback. So as much as I want Jamar Chase and DeVonta Smith, which we'll be talking about very, very soon in Midnight Green, trading out of that number 6 spot and being fortunate enough to get Caleb Farley in Midnight Green would be a home run start for the Eagles draft in that first round. Let's go, Chris. You're up, man.
So speaking of another Bama guy back-to-back, DeVonta Smith, first time he's coming up on the show. I have him right here at 5. So DeVonta Smith, I mean, this guy is the first wide receiver to win the Heisman in almost 30 years. He had a prolific season. We had a front row seat to watch him put up insane numbers in just the first half of the national championship game before injuring his finger coming across the middle. I mean, the main concern with him has nothing to do with on-field production or anything off-field. Like, there's no red flags there. It's just his size. I mean, it's almost just his weight and his stature, because he's gonna be 6'1". At the Senior Bowl, I was virtually covering it, and everyone was just saying how impressive he was, and he's a really mild-mannered guy, and he just really takes the game seriously, film study, all that, and people just like him. I mean, it's crazy that this guy that's just absolutely embarrassing defense is just like this really quiet, soft-spoken guy. One body and player comp that people have been saying is like Marvin Harrison. The thing with DeVonta Smith is he can really do it all. He can line up all over the field. I think he would be like absolutely prolific in the slot and like an insane upgrade from Greg Ward. I do think he could line up outside too, but I just really think DeVonta Smith would be a really solid pick. I don't be surprised if he goes to Miami at 3, or if they just do a small trade back with a quarterback needy team, and because they were really impressed down in Alabama with DeVonta Smith, the Dolphins.
Yep. Ricky Urban says, I want Chase or Pitts personally. We'll be getting into them very soon. And then Limit says, we're about to take a quarterback. We did one of our first pods on the Eagles draft centered around that question. We did that like 2 weeks ago, Limit. So go check that out on this channel. We talked about whether or not the Eagles are going to take a quarterback in the first round. You're up, Mark. Who is your number 5?
My number 5 is offensive tackle Penei Sewell from Oregon. I don't have too much to say. You guys kind of said it all. He's a 6'6", 325 athletic monster, prototype offensive tackle, like Tyron Smith, Lane Johnson, whoever you want to compare him to. He's that top 5 prospect prototype, huge athletic offensive tackle. He's the first sophomore to win the Outland Trophy, awarded to the nation's most outstanding interior lineman. I actually think he's probably the only person that opted out, who I don't think it affected their stock whatsoever, because he has so much good tape out there already. It wasn't even worth it for him to play this season because of how highly he was regarded already. And he allowed just 1 sack over 1,376 snaps in his last 2 seasons, and did not allow a pressure, hurry, or hit on the quarterback in his last 9 full games. He doesn't turn 21 until October. He's just a no doubt top 5 guy.
Awesome. What about you, Shane?
So I'm just going to keep following Chris, I guess. This is what maybe we should have compared notes. So my number 5 was also DeVonta Smith, and Chris kind of covered. I mean, really, the only thing you're concerned about with him a little bit is his weight, his size. And it's not, I don't think it's a huge concern, but I think it limits a little bit of his versatility. I don't think at the NFL level, you might not be able to put him at the X. He's probably going to have to be the slot or the Z receiver. To whereas with Chase, I think you can put him anywhere. And so I put Chase a little bit ahead of him, but either way, I mean, you're going to get a stud receiver. Smith, we've talked about the Eagles offense. What does the Eagles offense not have? Explosive plays. And what does it have a ton of is dropped passes. And he cures both of those problems. He has the most 20-yard touchdowns of any receiver in this class. And he has a 2% drop rate over his entire career at Alabama. So, I mean, I think he's a surefire pick. If the Eagles go that way, if they decide to go with a playmaker, you wouldn't be disappointed with DeVonta Smith.
Marky Mark says last best Eagles cornerback was 2005 to 2008 with Sheldon Brown and Lito. Slay and Farley or Surtain could be special. Asante Samuel would be his hands like when we talk about like trading back and getting another day 2 pick. Asante Samuel is right on the top of that list, man. That's another great fit for the Eagles in that day 2 range. But piggybacking off of what we just said, cornerback Patrick Surtain is my number 5. Even a slight trade back in the 8 to 12 range, and Patrick Surtain would be perfect for the Philadelphia Eagles. He's by far one of the best in this draft. But let's look at the facts, guys. You look at defensive coordinator Jonathan Gannon, a former defensive backs coach. Surtain was a 3-year starter at Alabama. We're talking about a seasoned prospect that has seen everything come his way in one of the best football conferences, period. What you love about Patrick Surtain is that he has the potential to excel in both the man and zone coverage. He doesn't have the best short area quickness, which Caleb Farley has. He doesn't have that super fast feet, but he has arguably he's that blue chip guy. I think someone said it where he might not have the highest ceiling, but he has the highest floor. And when you're talking about Howie Roseman, who needs a win more than anybody else in this entire draft at number 6, Patrick Surtain is a sure thing. And that I think that's a no-brainer. That's my number 5 prospect for the Philadelphia Eagles. Let's go to Chris again.
So number 4, I did Penei Sewell from Oregon, the tackle. I mean, the big thing is there's a little bit of mystery about the whole Andre Dillard situation. I've suggested maybe you kick him into left guard if Jason Kelce retires, and then maybe Sam Alu goes to center again. I mean, there's a lot of mystery. The good thing, I think, because I saw someone saying that they have to take it with linemen in the first. Not necessarily, because I think that we don't like some people kind of forget how many people were hurt last year. It was kind of a blessing in disguise in the way that we got guys really like a lot of quality time that they wouldn't have gotten otherwise. I mean, Driscoll, Herbig, and especially Mailata, they played more time than they ever would have imagined, and they really did well. I mean, Herbig and Driscoll did really well, and Mailata just jumped on the scene. That being said, I don't know how they view Mailata. I mean, they benched him for Kelce at a time this year, and if Sewell's there, he's been regarded as like a generational tackle. Yep. They might just take him there. And the big thing is, you saw what Baltimore did with the value-wise when they took Orlando Brown, and they knew that they had Ronnie Stanley too. But now Orlando Brown is requesting a trade, and they're going to get a king's ransom for him. I mean, Orlando Brown's an incredible player, and he might be a premier left tackle by next year, whether it's on the same team or another team. But that's the whole thing. Like, maybe they end up moving Dillard, maybe they end up moving Mailata, who knows. But Sewell is really intriguing if he's on the board there.
What about you, Mark?
I've got wide receiver Jamar Chase from LSU. After last season, all season, he was kind of my number 2, no doubt, overall after Trevor Lawrence before his opt-out, which could be unfair, but it's less of a slight to Chase opting out and more of a testament to what the guys who I have 2 and 3 were able to show me. Chase won the Biletnikoff in 2019 as part of the best offense in maybe college football history with Joe Burrow, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Justin Jefferson, and former Eagles head coach candidate Joe Brady calling the plays. He had one of the best college football receiver seasons ever, comparable with DeVonta Smith's Heisman season this year. He caught 24 passes of 20-plus yards in 2019. He's 6'1", 200 pounds, but if you watch him play, he looks like he's 6'3", 6'4". He plays way bigger than his size is. He doesn't necessarily have elite burner speed, but he's an elite route runner and finds ways to create space, sort of like a Devontae Adams. The reason he's slightly below a couple other guys for me is concerns about that lack of elite height and speed affecting him at the next level, as well as only having one season of elite production, as well as a little bit of a drops problem comparatively to some of the other pass catchers at the top. But I don't want to make it sound like I don't like him. I absolutely love him. I have him 4th overall in the entire draft. It just so happens that this draft is loaded with pass catchers, and he's not my personal favorite.
Shane, you want to piggyback off of that?
Yeah, Chase is my number 1 receiver in the draft as of right now. I mean, he's a pure alpha. He can play you can put him any spot on the field at receiver. He's fantastic at the catch point in terms of physicality. He's not going to be as fast as Waddle or probably Smith, but I mean, he's bigger, and you sacrifice a little bit of that, and I don't have a problem with that. But that still said, he didn't play in 2020, and he still only has one less 20-plus yard touchdown than Smith. And in 2019, he became the only player to ever average 20 yards per reception and score 20 touchdowns in the same season. So I think he'd be a slam dunk. He would be a great pairing with, if you're looking at a wide receiver core of Jamar Chase and Jalen Reagor, and you got Dallas Goedert at tight end, Miles Sanders out of the backfield, that's some weapons that you can use, with a second-year quarterback in Jalen Hurts.
Yep. Delco Green says if Pitts falls to Dallas, they will pick him with their current receivers. That would be scary. And that is my number 4 prospect for the Eagles at number 6 is Kyle Pitts. I think any conversation about Kyle Pitts begins that this is not your typical tight end prospect. This is a unique guy. First and foremost, this is a guy that you can line up literally all over the field. He played in the slot. He played in the X for Florida. This is one of the best offensive playmakers in the entire draft class. A massive weapon on 3rd down, a ridiculous weapon in the red zone. He can hurt you downfield, but he's also one of the best route runners in this entire draft class. You look at his Pro Football Focus grade as a tight end and wide receiver, among the best in college football. So to put it simply, as the NFL evolves into a mismatched league, this is the kind of guy you want on your football team. This is a guy that you can literally put all over the field, in the red zone or down the field. This is it. Zach Ertz likely won't be an Eagle moving forward with the next season. You look at Dallas Goedert, who shows he could potentially be a number 1 tight end, but I don't think that stops me from taking a playmaker like Kyle Pitts. I think it all boils down to whether or not Nick Sirianni is creative enough to utilize this type of playmaker in his offense. We don't know what his play calling is going to look like. I know he's not Chase or Smith, but if both guys are off the board at number 6, I absolutely love this pick at number 6, and it would just be a home run pick for me. I've fallen in love with Kyle Pitts. I wrote a scouting report on him. I went into this thinking that there's no way they're going to take a tight end at number 6. But the more you look at this and the way you look at the way the league is evolving, I'm 100% down. I think that narrative of the tight end and all that, just throw that out the window. It's about mismatches, and I think Kyle Pitts is that offensive weapon you need next to Jalen Hurts. Let's go on to Shane. What is your number 3?
My number 3 is quarterback Zach Wilson from BYU. Zach Wilson, Mormon Manziel, whatever you want to call it. He's a playmaker. He's got a lot of that Aaron Rodgers improviser in him. He's got a really, really strong arm. He can put the ball downfield anywhere you want him to. He can drop it in a bucket. He can throw it with some zip. He can do whatever you need him to. But he was the highest graded deep passer in college football this season. Now, his breakout season came against some terrible competition, and so that's something to be aware of. But I do think he's a playmaker. He's somebody that he can put the ball anywhere you need it, and if nothing's there, he can make a lot of plays with his legs. I'll talk a little bit more about why I'm talking about quarterbacks in a few minutes, but he would be my number 3 player for the Eagles to take would be Zach Wilson.
All right. What about you, Mark?
My number 3 player is tight end Kyle Pitts from Florida. He's probably my favorite. He's probably my favorite player to watch in the draft, honestly, and break down the film. Something that surprised me with the growth of the importance of the tight end position. Only 4 tight ends have went top 10 since 2000, and Pitts looks to be 5th. Those 4 tight ends were Kellen Winslow, Vernon Davis, Eric Ebron, and T.J. Hawkinson. This leads me to my hot take. I think Kyle Pitts is the best tight end prospect of my lifetime. So that means, and I'll get to, I don't want to, I'll wait to give my other tidbit for my number 1 player, but Kyle Pitts is one of my top 3 favorite players in the draft, and he's 3rd overall. I know Field Yates, a former scout and an NFL guy for ESPN, has him 3rd overall as well and wants everyone to get past the tight end label. He's the first tight end to ever be a finalist for the Biletnikoff Award given to the best pass catcher. He's the first tight end to finish top 10 in the Heisman since 1977. And in my opinion, he's the perfect modern tight end. It's basically a receiver and compares favorably and similarly to Travis Kelce and Darren Waller. Pitts is tall with an athletic build and long arms. He also has a huge catch radius and is a flexible guy with excellent body control to leap up in the air and pluck the ball or go low to scoop a pass down by his feet. Excellent ball and traffic ability. He'll be 20 when he's playing in the NFL this year, so he's young, which is always good for upside. But the main reason I love him is because, honestly, I don't know how to guard him. Someone in the chat I saw mention him going to Dallas. I'm more worried personally about him going to New York because I think that's a little bit more realistic and where they are in the draft. And he's way too big for corners and safeties. He's way too fast for linebackers. And against single coverage at Florida, he posted a national best 98.9 receiving grade against single coverage. And he, like you said, he did not drop a single pass in 2020. On top of all of that, in terms of the Eagles, he's from Philly. He's a diehard Eagles fan growing up and would give the Eagles a dynamic weapon that is extremely rare at his position.
He literally looks like a basketball player, like a power forward playing football. Like it's amazing. It's amazing. Chris, what's your number? What were we at? 3, right?
Yep. So my number 3. So this is a guy that I think he might have the value of the 6th overall pick by the end of his career. But I definitely wouldn't take him at 6. My whole thing is value-wise. Obviously, we know that Howie's drafting. Let's throw that out, and let's say that we know that we could definitely hit on the picks that we get back. I'm going with J.C. Horn just because I believe in the talent there. So I think that you could definitely trade back to maybe San Fran at 12 or a team like around there that would be looking to get value back. And because I feel like San Fran's kind of in win now, and if let's say Fields or Wilson drops them, they might go all in, or a team around there. But J.C. Horn, in my opinion, I think he has it's close. I think that Horn and Farley are definitely have the highest ceiling out of the cornerback group. J.C. Horn's a monster. I mean, he's been going off in the offseason to get ready for the draft. And then if you just watch his tape, I mean, he bodies Kyle Pitts in some tape, and it's really crazy. He's almost like a linebacker in the way he tackles, and he is probably the closest thing I've seen to Jalen Ramsey in a while. I mean, the way that his body type and just the way he is in coverage, like he's kind of crazy, but it's in a good way. He's Joe Horn's son. If you guys haven't watched a lot of tape on him, definitely check it out. He's really good. In Israel, Mukamara, his teammate on the other side, is really solid. He's a 6'3" corner. They're both solid size. So let's say that you end up moving back from like 6 to 12. You're getting a ton of value. So let's say you get Horn. You're back in the second. You can get maybe like a Javonte Williams, a Jabril Cox, or like you move back in and you get like a Rashad Bateman. I mean, that's the whole thing is like trusting Howie to hit on the value. That's the reason why I have who I have at the top, because I think that I'd rather take more of the sure things, but we'll get to that.
I was talking to my friends before this pod, and I had my top 10 list, and J.C. Horn was like my honorable mention. I couldn't get him into that top 10, but terrific player. My number 3 is Penei Sewell. My God, guys, what a dream pick it would be for the Eagles at number 6. They don't really need a left tackle because Dillard, Mailata, they got some young talent there. The point is, if you have the chance to land someone that can anchor the offensive line for the next 10 plus years, you do it 100% of the time. Carson Wentz was the most sacked quarterback in the league last year in just 12 freaking games. The problem here is that the Cincinnati Bengals are sitting at number 5 and will 100% take him. I would be shocked if they don't take Sewell if he falls there. So similar to Jamar Chase, which I'm going to talk about very, very soon. This guy's athleticism, size, polish in the run and passing game at only 20 years old. I think Jamar Chase is only 20 years old. It makes him the total package. So for the Eagles that are in that process of complete rebuild at ground zero, getting a 20-year-old franchise left tackle that has the ceiling to be top 5 in his position, you do it every time. Penei Sewell is my number 3. Go ahead, Shane. What is your number 2?
My number 2 is quarterback Justin Fields from Ohio State. Feels like maybe it's a good time to talk about quarterbacks. Feels like maybe it's a good time to have that discussion. We've had it before, but for me, you've got a franchise quarterback or you need one. And I'm not convinced that Jalen Hurts is the guy, and neither are the Eagles, or they wouldn't have taken him with the 2nd round pick. You don't take a franchise quarterback in the 2nd round. You get him in the 1st. You take developmental backups after the 1st round. That doesn't mean they can't turn into one, but the Eagles did not view him as a franchise guy last year in the draft. And I didn't see anything in the 4 games to convince me otherwise. And so to me, if you're sitting at 6 and one of the quarterbacks is there, you either take him or you trade back. And that's why they're at the top of my list here. They're the players that I view as the most valuable. And if they're there, you either take it or you trade back. But I love Justin Fields. I have him ahead of Zach Wilson. He's my QB2 in the class. He doesn't have as big of an arm as Wilson, but he's great in the RPO game. He's the only quarterback with a top 10 passing and rushing grade last season. He ranked 6th in passing grade, 2nd in rushing grade among quarterbacks. And, the Eagles need that playmaking ability. That's, the little bit of the spark we saw from the offense at the end of the year was Jalen Hurts running around, and Justin Fields can do that, and he can do it better. He can stretch a defense horizontally with the RPO game. He can stretch it vertically with his arm. And he's the type of guy that teammates would absolutely love. I was watching Ohio State, Michigan State, and there's a play. They're blowing Michigan State out. It's like 28-0, and they do a read option. He gives the ball, and his running back breaks free. And so he chases the guy down, which is impressive enough. He runs the running back down and throws a block for him 60 yards downfield in a 28-point game. Like, high motor, team first guy. I think he could make the offense take a huge leap next year, and I'm a big believer in his potential long term.
What about you, Mark?
My number 2 player is wide receiver DeVonta Smith from Alabama. All year long before the playoff, I was a believer in Jamar Chase over DeVonta Smith. But when I watched him just absolutely dominate Florida, Notre Dame, Fighting Irish, and Ohio State, I just couldn't ignore his upside any longer. I think he has the potential to make the most people look dumb in this draft, either way, for drafting him or for passing up on him. But he had 117 catches for 1,900 yards, 23 touchdowns, and had 30 catches of 20-plus yards. When you compare him to Chase, I just find it hard to find the reason for me to single out Chase that would be different, other than weight. I find it hard to find the thing that I prefer Chase in. Smith played all 4 years and only dropped 9 passes, caught a ball to literally win the national title as a freshman, as he has performed well in every big game he's ever been in. He's worked well with not only Mac Jones, but with Tua and also with Jalen Hurts. I know people are throwing out the Tavon Austin, John Ross worries, but those guys were not the first Heisman since 1991. He also won the Biletnikoff, obviously. Todd McShay has taken to comparing him to Marvin Harrison. I've also heard slimmer, faster Calvin Ridley. So I think both make sense, but I really do think DeVonta is his own special type of receiver, as reference for how special his Heisman senior year was at Alabama.
Chris.
So my number 2 is Kyle Pitts. I mean, this kid went to Archbishop Wood. That's where he really broke out. It's funny enough that he actually transferred to Archbishop Wood because his first high school coach told him that he wasn't going to be a tight end or should ever play tight end. That guy's probably probably should lose his job. The thing with Kyle Pitts is I've been hearing about him ever since he's been in high school. People just said he was like a unicorn. And then I watched him a lot at Florida, and he really improved as a blocker this year. And he was just so dominant. I mean, the reason why I like him is, like, you see the way that Kelsey and Waller and Kittle impact the game. That's what people were wishing Goddard could do. But Goddard really wasn't insanely productive when Zach Ertz was out this year. I think Goddard is better than the average tight end, but he's nowhere near Pitts in regards to the way that he is with or without the ball, with his routes or his yards after receptions. The thing with Kyle Pitts, though, is like you can move him all over the field, and he just makes your entire offense more dynamic. I think that he would make the red zone offense insane. Let's say that we do go forward with Jalen Hurts. I mean, Jalen Hurts and Miles Sanders with the play action in the red zone, and then it gets the safety to creep up a little bit, and then you have a guy like Kyle Pitts that you can just dump it off to. And then the thing is, he's that big. I mean, he's 6'6", he's 250. He has a way above average speed for his size, and he would just be a huge piece of the offense. And people really need to get past the tight end label, because most NFL scouts are. I mean, when people talk about him, people have him ranked as like wide receiver 1 or wide receiver 2, above the guys that we've talked about.
It's not unlike positionless basketball in the NBA, where people are still dinosaurs when they still talk about power forwards, centers, small forwards, shooting guard. But can we get a bruising power forward? Those days are dead. You're going to be defined in the NFL about like in the NBA, like who you can defend and what your role is in that offense. And I think Kyle Pitts crushes the board when it comes to being able to impact many levels on offense. My number 2 is DeVonta Smith, 117 catches, 1,800 plus yards, 23 touchdowns, first wide receiver to win the Heisman. Dude was unbelievable for Alabama last year. He's that deep threat, but this guy is a technician when it comes to route running. This guy turns slant routes into routine 20-plus plays. But by the way, he can also be that home run threat in bubble screens. Like his run after the catch is ridiculous. I see DeVonta Smith as that like Z receiver in the NFL. Like you said, Chris, he would be an upgrade over Greg Ward, believe it or not, even though I'm a huge Greg Ward fan. It hurts me to say that. But I see a lot of people, we talked about it today, talking down on his slender frame. I don't buy it at all. I guess the other knock is he's 22 years old. So he is an older prospect when we're talking about Jamar Chase, who has just turned 20 and dominated competition as a 19-year-old. And if it wasn't for Chase's like ridiculous year in 2019, DeVonta Smith would be a hands down number 1 wide receiver prospect in this year's draft, probably over the last several years. So this guy's a stud. If the Eagles were lucky enough that he falls to number 6, it is an A++++ draft for the Philadelphia Eagles. DeVonta Smith is my number 2. Shane, what is your number 1?
My number 1 is a guy that'll never be there, even when the Jets are on the clock. But, if we're just ranking our top 10 here, Trevor Lawrence is my number 1 quarterback. There's no doubt you're hearing smoke. I mean, you're hearing smoke from people saying they've got Zach Wilson ahead of Trevor Lawrence. I'm here to tell you right now, that's the New York Jets saying that. So when they take Zach Wilson, they don't have to be like, yeah, man, you are our number 2. No, they want to be like, you are our number 1 the whole time. And outside of that, there is no sane football person that's putting Zach Wilson ahead of Trevor Lawrence. He's a generational type of prospect at quarterback. And I don't throw generational talent around lightly, even though I've said it twice in this broadcast. He's that good. He's a slam dunk. He's absolutely going off the board at number 1. But as I sit and think about what are the options for the Eagles at 6, he's a guy that's going to be gone, which is good because it pushes more talent down the board to the Eagles. I would be thrilled if the Eagles decided to let the board come to them and then they're able to trade back. If there's a quarterback there and there's a team, you got the Panthers at 8, you've got the Broncos at 9, the 49ers at 12. All three are potential trade-ups. I'd be comfortable trading back into any of those slots because I think some of this talent we're talking about, it's going to be there at those spots, and it gets you some more picks. And so that's my hope for what happens with the Eagles on draft day.
What about you, Mark?
I also have a quarterback, Trevor Lawrence, out of Clemson. In my opinion, he is the most complete, can't miss, no doubt, best quarterback prospect of my lifetime. I know that there's the people you can really compare him to are Andrew Luck, maybe Peyton Manning. I really don't think that there's many number one overall QBs who are as no doubt. Even Peyton Manning had Ryan Leaf nipping at his heels. Even Andrew Luck had Heisman RG3 nipping at his heels. But Trevor Lawrence is so no doubt about it, obviously going off the board at number one. The Jets could offer like 6 first-round picks, and I don't even think Jacksonville can make that move. I just don't know where the negatives are. I could run through all the positives and measurables and intangibles, but it's just everything from success to stats, eye test, leadership, measurables, analytics, recent history of the school. Everything tells you Trevor Lawrence is just a franchise changer right away and long term.
Chris, number 1.
So right here, you and I are agreeing. Jamar Chase. I mean, the thing with him is you really could go with him or Smith. I really think it's that close. It's not even 1 or 2. It's 1A, 1B. The thing with Jamar Chase, in my opinion, is I'm an LSU fan. I watched the games really closely. And the thing with him is he put up those numbers when he was sharing snaps and touches with Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Thaddeus Moss, and Justin Jefferson. Justin Jefferson literally got pushed into the slot because Jamar Chase was just that dominant at X. The thing with Jamar Chase is every 4.4 catches last year, he scored a touchdown. That's how high his rate was. It was crazy. And it wasn't like he was like a Deshaun Jackson catching like 40, 50 balls. He had 84 catches in 2019, and he was doing it in one of the most prolific offenses. And the thing with him is, like Smith, they're super aggressive at the catch point. It's what you love. I mean, that was the one thing with the Eagles that drove me crazy this year and the last couple of years is that, like, we don't really have guys that attack the ball as much as they should. They kind of sell out their quarterback and they don't come back for the ball as much. I mean, the thing with Chase is, and Mark talked about it earlier, he plays like he's 6'6". Yeah. He is just a monster before and after the catch. He's a great route runner. I've watched good tape on him. I watched bad tape on him. The thing with him is, I mean, he's battle tested. Obviously, the 1 year of production is one big knock on him. But the thing with him is, if you think of an offense, whether it would be him or Smith, like if you have Jamar Chase, Jalen Reagor, Dallas Goedert, Miles Sanders, like that's a really good core. And the thing with Jamar Chase is he can move all over the field. And I just think that he would be the one thing people talk about is the 40 speed. I mean, Shane alluded to it earlier. Other than Smith, he's top of the nation for 20-plus yard touchdowns. I mean, obviously he's a lot faster than people say. And the 40 times kind of really overrated. I mean, there's football speed and then there's track speed. And you see Jamar Chase just absolutely burn people in the field. And then people love guys like DeAndre Hopkins, but we all know that he's not really the fastest guy. That being said, Chase is way faster than him on the field. I just think Jamar Chase is kind of a no-brainer guy. And the reason why, like, a lot of the guys on all of our lists are people that we wouldn't necessarily take at 6, but they're trade back guys. The thing is, how much do we trust Howie Roseman to get value with the picks? That's why, like, guys like Jamar Chase and DeVonta Smith are so high on our list, because we really think that this new coaching staff is going to be going to do wonders by developing these guys more and putting them in positions to succeed. I mean, our play calling was horrendous last year. I mean, Miles was barely getting the ball. We were running 4 verticals all the time. And, like, it would be like a 3rd and 2, and we'd send people out in 4 verticals instead of just running pick plays. And Jalen Reagor only got 9 design plays the whole year in space.
Crazy. My number 1 is absolutely Jamar Chase. I've been on the Jamar Chase to the Eagles train since day 1. It's not stopping anytime soon. There's so much to like about Jamar Chase. He's big, he's fast, he's strong. He's a great route runner. You can put him all over the field. He's great at the catch point. He's a good run blocker. The fact that he's only 20 years old and he's going to be 27 by the time of the end of his rookie contract is the icing on the cake. I love Jamar Chase to the Eagles. This has been the no-brainer pick since day 1. The fact that this is even a debate with DeVonta Smith is the biggest compliment to DeVonta Smith imaginable. Just given how this guy was a 19-year-old dominating the best of the best in the best conference in football. It's pretty crazy. So DeVonta Smith, I'm not gonna rant on, but phenomenal prospect. You guys nailed it. So DeVonta Smith is my number one. Let's end it with plugs. Dude, Shane, what do you want to plug, my man?
You can give me a follow on Twitter. It's right here at the bottom of my screen. You can also follow our gamer channel for the Painted Lines. On Twitter, it's GamerTPL. Follow us on Twitch, twitch.tv/The Painted Lines. All of our shows live stream there, but we're going to start kicking off some exclusive gaming for there. So stay tuned for that. We've been putting in a lot of work on that, and I'm ready to get that kicked off soon.
What about you, Mark?
Yeah, you can follow me at Mark Henry Jr. _ like you see below on Twitter, and you can follow at Tough Cover Pod on Twitter. And hopefully I'll be posting Smith Pitts and Chase highlights for the next 65 days. Hopefully we draft one of them and I order a jersey live on air and it can go hanging up right behind me.
What up? Go ahead, Chris.
So you can follow me right here, Mally _Chris _24 on Twitter. Tons of draft content. Going to be doing a bunch of stuff leading up to the draft and during the draft. I was at the Senior Bowl this year virtually. If you guys have any questions or want to see any all 22, you can hit me up. Thanks again for having me on. And obviously we'll do a lot more content in the next 65 days.
Always a pleasure, bro. Please be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Check us out on Twitch, at the Painted Lines, on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, you name it. I'm going to throw a 180 here. I'm happy to announce that we made a partnership with a store on eBay that I do WandaVision pods for another podcast called the Suit Up Geeks, where we do everything from Star Wars to MCU to DC, you name it. We're going to be doing giveaways every single Friday night, collectibles, swag. We made a partnership, and we're going to be giving out everything, especially starting when Falcon and the Winter Soldier starts in a couple weeks, which is going to be on Disney Plus. That's going to be fun. I write written reviews on that, and we're going to be just having a lot of fun giving out free swag. It's going to be really, really cool. So you never know whether it's artwork or it's going to be cool. So thank you, everybody here for watching. Please be sure to follow my man Shane, my man Mark, and my man Chris. Thank you, everybody, for watching. Stay awesome, guys. See you next time.